Greetings in Jesus' wonderful name and welcome to Riverside Chats. We are talking about women who were influential in Moses' life. And we're looking at his mother, Jochebed. Jochebed was a tremendous woman of faith. She and her husband, Amram, from the tribe of Levi, carefully listened to the prophetic words that Israel would be in servitude under Egyptian bondage for 430 years. They calculated it carefully and they believed it was time for the deliverer. And they believed that their child would be a deliverer. And their faith led them to action, and their action resulted in Moses being saved from the Holocaust and the terrible genocide of many kids dying. When he was 3 months, they could not hide him any longer. So she decided to make a papyrus cradle and covered it with pitch and placed it on the Nile to float. She was an engineer of sorts. It's amazing, we don't hear much about Amram. We hear more about Jochebed. Now, the relationship is that they were related, and Jochebed was Amram's auntie. He kind of married his auntie because that was his father's sister. But check that, just don't accept that from me. The midwives, Sifra and Pua, disobeyed the king because they respected life and they knew murdering children was wrong. And now here's a mother who had to participate in the divine scheme of things. God had a plan for her baby, a plan for a baby to live. God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. God chose Moses. Moses was beautiful. It's amazing. Moses is writing about himself and he says he was a beautiful baby. Jewish tradition has it that Moses was so beautiful that people would stop and they would make a comment on Moses' beauty. I wish every mother looked at her child as a gift from God, that every mother looked at a child as a person of destiny. My mommy told me that when I was born, she was very young, a girl. She was only 17. She got married at 16. I was born when she was 17, and there were older ladies who gave birth to their children, and they were frightened. But she said she wasn't afraid. And she said when I was born, she loved to sing. And she held me in her arms and she sang, "It is no secret what God can do. What He's done for others, He'll do for you. With arms wide open, He'll pardon you. It is no secret what God can do." My mom believed that God would use me one day. I had a bad stuttering problem, but God helped me overcome that, and He's an awesome God. Do you look at your child as a person of destiny? Jochebed would nurture Moses with the expectation that he was a person of destiny. There was no man like Moses, and God vindicated Moses. God would say, "I speak to no one like my servant Moses. I speak to Moses face to face." What a authentication from God. God speaks on Moses' behalf. And Moses was a great intercessor. He would talk to God and say, "God, how can you do this? If you kill these people in the wilderness, what would the other nations say?" Here's a man who was so afraid of God, but who became so familiar with God when he sought the face of God. You see, the problem is many people, instead of seeking God's face, they want to seek God's hand. We want benefits from God in terms of God's hand. We want gifts from God. We want perks from God. The face of God is much better than the hand of God. But the Bible says God's hand is not too short that he cannot save. He is an awesome God. Here was Jocobed, a woman of expectation. I have expectation for our children, that they would succeed, that they would prosper, that they would walk in their God-given destiny. Again, the poorest person to die is not the person who has no money. The poorest person to die is the person who dies without fulfilling their destiny. I came from a very small town in South Africa, and God led me here to the Americas. And I'm so glad for the opportunity of sharing with you on Riverside Chats. What a wonderful opportunity. What a grand hour we live in. It's the church's grandest hour. It's the church's glorious day. So Jocobed was full of wisdom. She was a great mother, and she had abundant faith. She had faith that God would use her child. It was awesome. God would use her daughter Miriam, and Miriam, a young girl, Moses' older sister, would negotiate with the princess. And little girls can be cute. And she was about 7 at this time. And she negotiated for her own mother to take care of the baby. Now, Miriam had some problems later with Moses, but what a remarkable sister to have, his bigger sister. And sometimes, we don't respect our siblings. I have a younger sister. My sister is the youngest. I have a brother, Marshall, and he is younger than me. We are younger than each other by 6.5 years or 7 years. There's a gap. Marshall is younger than me by that amount of time, and Hazel is younger than Marshall by that period of time. So Hazel is younger than me over 13 years. So my parents planned well, but I was the only child for almost 7 years. She planned well, and what a woman of faith. What a sister of faith Moses had, and later his brother will help him. You see, ministry for them was a family affair. Mothers who have the same kind of mentality that Jocobed will pray, Lord, I don't know how my child will turn out, but I surrender myself and my child to your plan. My mom saying it is no secret what God can do. Wow. To think of how God led me. God had to change my marital status with the death of a spouse to get me here to America. And I'm married to my wife Cheryl now for 35 years. I was married to my first wife Esther for 6 years and 4 months. And God's plans are higher than our plans. Don't complain. Be a willing participant in God's plan, even when his will does not make sense. The cross that you bear may be hard to carry. Maybe you feel it too hard to understand. But every pain that you feel, Jesus died just to heal. I want to do your will, O Lord. Take me and break me, mold me and use me. I want to do your will, O Lord. He paid the price, the sacrifice with his blood on Calvary. He stood alone in Pilate's judgment hall. He took the cross. He paid the cost for my soul which was lost. I want to do your will, O Lord. Break me and make me, mold me and use me. I want to do your will, O Lord. Do you want to do God's will? God has a plan for you. He has a plan for your family. And pray your children into their destiny. Be good fathers and good mothers. The most you can do for your descendants is to give them a godly heritage. Because if you do that, God will keep covenant with your generations for 1,000 generations. I want to serve the purpose of God in my generation. Do you want to serve God's purpose in your generation? God has a plan so awesome, and he'll bless your generations. You cannot do a whole lot about your ancestors. They are gone. And maybe you had ancestors who didn't follow Christ, but you can do a whole lot with your descendants. Invest in them. The best investment is you be faithful to God, and God will take care of your descendants. God bless you and love you. And Jocobed is a good example to emulate. Love you. Bye-bye.